So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Hey guys, Red Morning, welcome. We said minute 5, it's minute 12. Donovan Standard Time. His shirts are funny. Haha, we get it. All right, let's move on to the content. How you doing, Carl?
I'm doing well. Like I was telling you, it was the logistics idea I had for this show is just the basics, like what we were talking about just now. Like you want your apartment close enough to like the hip areas of town that it's easy to bounce someone back, but not close enough that you keep getting dragged into random fights and have like 8 police cars outside your house.
Mm-hmm. I keep thinking, like every time you say the stuff you don't want, I'm like, oh yeah, that lady in the place above us got shot or suicide. We're not sure which, but they had 8 police cars outside our house, and we have like a SoundCloud rapper getting shot every couple months, a couple blocks from our place, and we're in like the nice part of town. When I lived in the crappy part of town, nothing happened except for the occasional fight.
Like not to advocate killing people, but if someone's getting killed and it's SoundCloud rappers, I see that as a pure win.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know this. SoundCloud rappers are like the Mogadishu Toyota with the 50 cal strapped to the back of like North America now. Like that guy that took over Seattle. Remember him, the Warlord? He was a SoundCloud rapper.
That'd be
Sound.
fun though. Like when you literally take over a city to look better on your SoundCloud profile.
I know that, and to get some chicks. I'm calling this one SoundCloud rappers. I'm making an effort now for the guys that watch this one to put like headers in our videos so they can skim through if they're like, oh, I'd love to hear more about SoundCloud rappers, but like the logistics of having sex is probably not for me. We're that kind to you guys.
Oh yeah, like Dante's saying here, like we're going to your place, which is where, oh, out in the countryside. Yeah, you can only pull that off if you have one of those motorcades where you see with like celebrities that rent like a big mansion right outside the city, and they have like a motorcade of 7 cars. You can pull it off then. You can't pull off like, yeah, babe, we'll just go back to my place. Yeah, how long is it going to be? Like 45 minutes. There's just way too much time for you to fuck it up if the transport takes more than like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that was how I worked it with my girl. She used to live about 45 minutes outside of town, and she would drive into town to go party. But then because BC has horrible drink and driving laws, she found it was just easier to stay at my place. So she'd come over before the bar, we'd fool around, and she'd go to the bar and enjoy herself. Then she'd come back and pass out in my bathtub or whatever. It was like the perfect plate. She literally just came over to party. I could go to work, and when I got home, she came home to sleep.
That's
So
a practical thing.
yeah, but my buddy Mike had a cabin in the woods, and it was only 20 minutes out. And he had a big Dodge 3500 to get them there. And I'm surprised not once did anybody have any apprehension about like a 20, 30-minute drive. I guess the
I
idea of
think,
the cabin in the woods was good enough for them.
well, I also think like 20, 30 minutes, like in what metropolitan city in the Western world or Eastern world for that matter, can you get from the bars, well, get anywhere in the city in like 20 minutes? Like a commute is usually like half an hour, 40 minutes. So 20 minutes, people are used to that.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Plus, it was always big. So I think that was the good thing about having a wingman. While you're driving home as the DD, everybody, he can like keep the party going in the truck. So it keeps all the, what's the mystery method way of saying it? Like the energy high and the emotional investment high. So,
Yeah, it's like kind of like the bounce to get something to eat. It's not a good plan if you're planning to get laid that night.
oh,
Like
God.
Like girls don't really want to get naked after spending an evening taking shots and then a huge pizza or whatever at the end of the night.
Plus, I noticed the kind of girls that love to have the shawarma post bar or the 99-cent pizza or whatever the hell they serve. They always eat like slobs. It kind of kills a bit of the mood for me when I watch a girl scarfing down a pizza. Like I can't think just stick to eating bananas and ice cream cones, you know?
Yeah, there is something about that too. Like, and plus that garlic bread from like shawarmas,
Oh,
garlic breath. I mean, you don't really want to deal with that shit. But I do kind of get it though, because it would be nice to live if there was a way to live in a way where you could get to the party district in like 15 minutes and still live in the countryside. I'd probably go for that one.
well, that's the way it used to be, wasn't it? With like the what do they call them? The train suburbs, where it was a suburb, but there was a streetcar that would take you to and from the city. Wasn't that how it used to work?
Yeah, and it's becoming harder and harder now.
Especially the states. Dude, I every time I go down there, I'm impressed. It's like, you know, Vegas, where you're in one of the strip hotels, and then you look and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to that CVS across the street. And you don't realize that's a 30-minute walk. That's going out. Every other country in the world has somehow figured out how to go across to the end of the street, go to the pharmacy, and come home. Vegas is like, yeah, I don't know. You take these 3 trains, pass by 5 guys, slapping those cards with the hookers there, 15 frat boys drinking out of the Eiffel Tower. 20 minutes later, hopefully you don't get shot by some SoundCloud rapper, and then you can go get yourself some condoms. Like, thanks, sir. Thank you very much.
Well, I do kind of suspect that the whole thing with the States, with a lot of that was built right after the car came out, when people were like, yeah, we're going to be driving personal cars around forever. There's never going to be any green change. We're not going to have to go off fossil fuels. We're just going to keep driving everywhere. And then at some point, people kind of came to the realization we can't drive anywhere, but the States wasn't really built for collective transport.
And they could fix it, because a lot of, like, LA took out its streetcars and that to put car-centric stuff. So if they took it out, they can put it back. I don't know, whatever. The States is, no offense to you guys. I know a lot of you guys are from the States. Well, actually, probably not, because it's early in the morning. I just couldn't live there. I tried. I went there. I've been there, a bunch of different cities, up both coasts, in the middle. It's just too... It's like it's designed to make you somewhat miserable, which explains Twitter.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. I just kind of see it as, once everything is based around having a car, and I like driving, I like having cars, it's just a matter of, I don't want to be dependent on a car to get around.
Yeah.
It's actually very relaxing. I was talking to Ryan with this, like the biggest change is, it's not actually a problem to drink because you can get to work the next day using public transport. It's not a problem to go anywhere where you can use public transport instead of driving.
Mm-hmm. It's more than that, too. I remember I used to take the subway to work. When I first moved to Montreal, it was the first time taking one, and I loved it because I had like 30 minutes, and the commute time didn't even bother me because I could just do whatever. Play a game on my phone, I could get some work done, I could do some writing, I could just surf Reddit. It's like your time was literally yours. It's the time I would have otherwise just spent sitting at home in a bathrobe drinking coffee. But you can actually have it on your commute there, so it kind of helps you relax on the way over.
I usually catch up on the news, see what's happening, try and figure out what's going to happen in financial markets that day, that type of thing.
How did that work out for you? I guess well. I hear, but you got good investments. It's a COVID joke, whatever. Fuck it. It fell flat. Can't win them all.
Oh, you know what it is.
Yeah, I'm all psyched now. I accidentally left money for too long in this one stock, like an airline stock. And then after the Indian variant came up, they all took a bit of a dive. So I'm like, fuck. Like, I don't look at it in terms of I lost money. I just look at it means I have to sit there with it for that much longer. Like, I lost the time waiting for it to recover. And it's finally back now. So I can get back onto my little fancy day trading like I know what I'm doing.
Oh, I'm mostly cash now. I still have the Bitcoin stuff and the Ethereum, but I kind of got out of the stock market with about half the portfolio now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of those issues where, okay, we have a momentum market, but we're starting to kind of get out of the COVID days, so to speak.
Right.
And once we're out of that, people are going to have to start looking a bit more on fundamentals.
I wonder, are they though? Because there's all that built up, like, fake money in the system. I think people are too greedy. Again, like gambling. How many times do people win? Like double their money and then walk away? Most of the time they don't, because Vegas knows they just keep you there and you'll eventually lose it all again. I think people are way stupider than that. I think they're going to stick until something crashes, and Bitcoin going down 20% is not a crash.
Yeah, people are going to stay in, but I don't want to stay in.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, fuck them. Oh, fuck them.
Well, the world is full of rich motherfuckers who took their win too early.
Okay.
Like, if a stock you have doubles, it's tempting to take the money.
Yeah.
And if you take the money every time you have a stock that doubles, instead of sitting in there, you'll still make a lot of money. You won't make as much as if you were sitting in it and got the 2-3 times over, but you're still making out quite well.
Well, isn't that the point of a hedge? Like, I can't remember who told it to me, but it was, if you're in an investment and your stock doubles, take half of it out. Because then
Yeah, that's one
everything that's in there
strategy.
is all profit.
Yeah, it's technically, yeah, but then if it drops again.
Well, fair enough.
Anyway, it was kind of a digression on the fact that you don't have to, sit in a stock just because you made money off it. You're free to sell it. So I just got rid of everything for the most part.
Hey, I mean, you can't complain. Works out well. Just got to put it in something right now. I don't know about you guys, but Canada. So our interest rate or our inflation rate's usually 2%. Like it was at the point that my accounting course in college said that accountants don't factor in Canada. We don't factor inflation. That's how stable it is and how low it is. And we just doubled our inflation rate this year. So whatever I do with my money, I got to make sure it's put into something that hedges against inflation. And I don't think there's going to be any losers. You may not win great, but I think you'll be fine as long as you hedge against inflation. Buy lumber. Put it in the shed. I don't even care. Put it in that shed you podcast your masculinity podcasts on. Fuck it.
Yeah, it's a fair point, but for me it was more of a I don't have time to watch the markets as closely right now, so I tend to prefer not having a lot of money in things with a substantial risk if I'm not going to be able to watch it.
Well, that's pretty smart, I guess. Fuck, we totally went off topic. Well, I guess, no, is this off topic or is this not about like the
Kind of a
logistics
bit
in
of
order?
both.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back then. What was my... I had 5 points I had. I like how you brought it up because you were like, we don't want to be too highbrow talking about theory and shit all the time. Let's do some actionable stuff. Here's the one. So I'll start you with the premise. I call it here the red pill cycle of failure. Talk about it all the time because it's common as fuck. Guys getting their act together, in a marriage, they're working on their dread. They make themselves attractive. They make themselves less unattractive. The girl's friends start hitting on the husband, so she starts getting attracted to him again. Usually spawned by anger. Guy gets angry, so he does all this work. And then she starts, having sex with him or being valuable in whatever way matters for a little bit. And then he lets his foot off the gas going, oh, thank God. Well, I did it. Now I can... All done. And then things slowly slide back to where they were. Where she realizes, oh, he was just faking it to try and get in my pants. And the guy had a covert contract where building a better mousetrap. And then he gets angry again. And then he starts doing that improvement shit again. Responds kind of well. Takes his foot off the gas once things start going moderately well. And it's like this weird cycle. And it's so common among guys. And I thought that'd be perfect for the logistics aspect. Because guys keep focusing on their feelings and their short-term gains. As opposed to like setting up a long-term logistical system that can make this more of a sustainable success. Thoughts?
Well, I do tend to I've always had the mind that men are, for the most part, by nature lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a human thing more than anything that we don't like expending energy doing something if we can avoid it. So once, the wife stops being attractive or whatever, the guy starts working out, fixing himself, and he gains value again. The wife's attracted to him. Then he's like, okay, good, that worked. Now I'm just going to chill for a while until it happens again. And it just becomes this cycle where he does improvement, then he regresses, then improvement, then regression. It's kind of like with lifting. We all know the guys that have been in the gym for like 10 years and have barely any gains to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing here. It's like they drop 40 pounds, becomes attractive, gains the 40 back, drops the 40 again, and that's how it goes.
Now I wonder though, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Where the guy is not so focused on improvement that he's willing to enjoy himself. It's like you were saying yourself, you don't want to be the kind of guy who has to weigh his food before you go to a dinner party. So you don't mind a couple extra pounds if it means you can live a life and look half decent.
No, I think that's kind of the point. You have to figure out that part, and that's what I've been a big advocate for, is figuring out what kind of lifestyle you want. Because all the guys who are showing off on Twitter and whatnot, those are all example lifestyles, right? You can
Caricatures of them, sure.
Well, you can try and get close to one of those caricatures in your life, and you'll probably do better than if you're shooting with no plan in mind.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But then once you try that lifestyle on for size, you have to figure out, is this something I could actually live with?
Well, yeah, that's why I liked your example of the guy weighing his food before he goes to dinner parties, or he only drinks vodka sodas because that's the most calorie appropriate drink. It's such a weird thing. Like everybody tries to sell it to you as an aspirational model, but it's not aspirational. It's like that, that old thing about the monkey's paw, how it grants wishes, but it fucks you up with the wish. It's like that.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm not sure if you, I think I had a rant on this at some earlier podcast we did,
Yeah, yeah.
where I kind of just listed out, if you kind of go through everything you have to do to be a high value man trademark, if you were to follow all manosphere advice, let's say you have 167 hours a week or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're working on your sleep, so you're getting at least 8 hours a week. That's 54 hours gone right there.
Right.
Then you have to go to work. So let's say you work a moderately normal job, so you work 40 hours a week. Then
So you're already down 100, almost 100 hours. I think it's like 90
yeah,
something.
you're down 94 hours just off sleep and off work.
Mm-hmm.
Then add to that, you have to get to the gym. Let's say you do strong lifts 5x5, you do the 3 day a week program. That's going to be about another 2 to 3 hours. Let's make it 3 to make the math easy.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to do your food and your food prep and your food shopping. That's easily going to be a couple hours a week. Probably underestimating. Then you have
Whittling
to keep
down.
then you have to you have to keep your place normally clean, do the normal kind of self-grooming, home grooming, etc. So I'm going to add another, 5 hours. Let's add 5 hours for that a week. I think it's probably undershooting. I think it's closer to 10. But
And
it
don't
depends
forget,
how.
the lag for it too. Like you don't automatically wake up in the morning and go straight to work. Like there's time in the middle there, just transitioning between activities. So you're losing. What did they say in contracting? Like 10, 20%? I'd argue you probably lose that in between.
Yeah, I'd say so too. It's like if I'm going, like I chose this place based on the close proximity to a couple of gyms.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a 10-minute walk to my gym. So every time I go, that's the 20 minutes I lose regardless.
Right.
So let's say you add like 10 hours for that, and you're already down to almost, let's see here. Can't do this. Is a little bit too much math for me to do in my head at this point in time.
I'm fine with napkinning it. We're down to like 30 some hours left for your side hustle and
Well, we take 167, you remove the sleep, you remove the work, you remove 20 more hours. You're down to 53 hours left just after that. And then you have to account for, you want to be able to actually go on dates and go out. So that's going to eat up at least 20 hours of your time if you're doing that actively.
oh yeah.
I don't think 20 hours of doing game, if you're combining that with going to a club or something or bar hopping or whatever, I don't think that's too much. And then you have all the prep work. So you're down to maybe 20 free hours a week that you could use for whatever you want. And that's where your side hustle is going to be, among other things.
And that's great if you have like a perfect logistical system organized. It's like you basically are describing the equivalent of weighing your food all day, every day. Doesn't matter if you're on a cut, doesn't matter if it's Christmas or whatever, like measuring Christmas cake, but you're basically doing that with the entire life. Now, I don't know anybody who has that like hardcore mix of Puritan work ethic and autistic like attention to detail. I don't think it's humanly possible. I really don't. At least not for the long term.
I know a few people like that, but it's...
For him, it's probably a compulsion.
Well, you just end up cutting out other necessary things. There's a reason why computer nerds have a rep for having bad hygiene.
If I don't shower, that cuts out 20 minutes per day, and at times 7, I could finish this module.
Hey, back in my teens, I used to play a game where we had guys who would literally shower once a week during server downtime.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I was going to say something quippy there, but I'm just like, oh.
And kind of the point that I'm trying to get to was you have to be diligent with what you want to spend time on and what you don't want to spend time on. And in most cases, in my experience, 80% is good enough. Hell, 60% is good enough in most cases.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily 60s. I think 70% was what we agreed on back in you had a good enough cycle that we talked about like 2 years ago. I think it was. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's also kind of like same thing with like whenever I cut, I put my deficit at 1,000. I know I won't be able to reach it, but I know if I set it for 1,000 and I plan out 1,000, then all the extra, like a dollop of butter here to make the sauce better, a little bit extra oil there to crisp up the vegetables,
1,000
that
turns
type
into
of stuff.
500.
Yeah, exactly. So that way I still have the deficit I want, but I've just started it at a lower point, so I don't have to measure anything with autistic attention to detail. Even though I've done that for so long,
Yeah.
that I can cut perfect 5 gram pieces of butter, and I can more or less measure rice to the 100 gram by eye, just because
Yeah.
I've done it so many times.
Well, dude, that was the best thing you ever showed me there was about the weighing. We finally started doing the weighing thing here, and it got to the point where, like, we're within 50 calories. We can eyeball shit pretty goddamn well. My girl's basically calculated how many tacos on a cutting meal versus, like, a bulking meal. It's 2, by the way. The answer is 2 for the size tacos we get. 3 tacos, maintain, 2 tacos to lose.
Yeah, I think the Mark Manson quote in chat right now just kind of highlights the point. It's not about not giving a fuck about anything, but choosing the few things to give a fuck about and not giving a fuck about the rest. And
Oh, yeah.
I kind of get like the sales pitches because everyone has their angles. Like you have the workout guys who just want to keep shilling programs. You have the spiritual enlightenment guys who are slinging crystal plated anal plugs. You have the people who are doing various side hustles and entrepreneurships and all that stuff. And you have to kind of pick what you want. Like, if you're okay with how much money you're making now at your work and you like going to your work, you don't need a side hustle.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted, but yeah, if a hobby, sure, but you don't need it.
Or, like, in my case, like, I can get away with a lot because I'm a fucking insomniac. So if I'm lucky, I'll sleep like 30 hours a week. So that immediately gives me 24 more hours. That's an extra day a week I can use for other stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend developing insomnia, though, to get more time to do a side hustle.
But I mean, that's the people that fall for marketing, though. That's what they do. Like, I'll pretend you're the marketing guy. You'll say you have a problem. And the guys, it's not that they have a problem, but you'll fear monger them with shit. Girls hate guys who don't get this extra 24-hour shit done. Guys can't stand it. The liberals will take your guns if you don't spend the 24-hour thing on the thing. But I got the solution, and it's insomnia. Join my insomnia course. It's literally fearmonger a problem, get you emotionally hooked on that problem because it resonates somehow with some failure in your life already, and then promise that, hey, just be like me. It worked for me. Here's my course.
Yeah, and kind of like I'm. Sorry, I cut you off there. I think.
No. I was going to go into it. And the part that bugs me about it isn't that. It's that when you bring it up, it's like, hey, dude, he's basically telling you to live like him. He wants to act like you're Jordan Peterson. And then the audience is usually so emotionally invested, they get mad at you. And that's why I've kind of taken that, just fuck them. Let them learn this the hard way attitude towards it. But it's weirdly effective.
Oh yeah, I think every time you can take something off your mental plate is effective. Like I'm actually starting to appreciate like Steve Jobs' approach with just wearing the same fucking outfit every day.
Oh, yeah. Obama did that
Because,
too
like,
with his suits, didn't he?
Well, it was just like I had to. We've started opening up a bit more, so I have to actually attend things in person, so I can't sit around all day in a t-shirt. Because we were doing that newscaster shtick for like a year now, where it's like suit and tie on the top, and then Under Armour shorts and shit, sitting working from home. And like I just kind of forgot how much time went into the small things with getting dressed. Like if you're putting on a suit, figuring out a tie that looks good with that suit and that shirt, kind of working that out with what kind of shoe. That stuff takes a lot of time every day if you start adding it up and if you're kind of diligent about it.
Mm-hmm. There's hacks you can do around it, but you're right, it does.
Yeah, like ideally, I was thinking about like if you had like 7 suits, 7 ties, that would probably do better. And I like solid pattern shirts. Well, no pattern solid shirts, just because they're much easier to match with because you don't have to consider patterns when you're picking.
Well, that's why for mine, I just every time I buy something new, thank you very much, Svetten, is how does it fit with everything else I own? Like my closet, even though yeah, I got it funny shirts, goofy shirts, whatever. But basically, I don't have to make the decisions, even though everything is wildly different in there, because everything I own goes with everything else I own in some manner. The colors are all
Fair enough.
consistent. The only thing I have to do is avoid like obvious things, like don't get too crazy with the patterns, or like the suits the same way. I would have a pinstripe Oxford blue suit, but deep red ties, and then white or light blue shirts. Like you can't really go wrong, no matter how much you mix and match that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you're right, though. It's essentially the same thing. I'm just hiding it, obfuscating it under a layer of gay shirts. It's still the same
Fair enough.
process. Like this one
No,
and my pink Hawaiian shirt. They're all gonna basically look the same. They're both the blues. They're both the very like light peachy colors, and they'll go exactly with everything I have that's khaki, deep red, or navy blue.
yeah, and I mean, building your wardrobe like that makes perfect sense because you've reduced the amount of decisions you have to actively make every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've often found myself halfway chuckling to myself when I'm looking at like these to-do lists that you see it's actually funny that we've gone from honey-do lists to Guru says I should do lists.
They've imparted themselves as the nagging wife on single lonely men.
Well, it's kind of funny. Like, it's going to be easy for these guys when they get married because they're already used to having some total stranger give them a list of shit they're supposed to do.
God, I shake my head, man. And they're not just fans; they'll stand for you. Like you can always tell
Oh yeah.
whenever you chuck some shit at one of them, there'll be like 15 people in your mentions threatening to I'll murder your family. It's like, holy jeez, guy, I don't think Kevin Samuels is bad. My bad. I just don't think it's useful to yell at women all day thinking you're fixing them. I mean, whatever, you do you.
At the same time, though, I always found that to be like a good test of what kind of person I'm dealing with. Because if I criticize someone from a good, like if I'm shit talking someone, fair enough, then I'm asking for it.
Yeah.
But let's say I offer a well thought out critique of someone else's work and I suddenly have 15 dudes in my mentions trash talking, then that's one of those, okay, this might be a cult leader moments.
Oh, it absolutely is. Feminist. Whenever you shit on a feminist, it's that happening there. Communist. I noticed they're bad for that too. Just yesterday, I laughed because somebody on my timeline was laughing at this chick talking about communism, and then she had like an OnlyFans link in the bio, and I quoted that meme where it's like what girls think they'll do during the economic collapse, where it's like the Katniss thing with the arrow, and then what they'll
Yeah.
actually do, where they're just sitting on the streets side hustling. Meanwhile, 15 of her OnlyFans subscribers just fucking livid, screenshot some shit and throw it at me. I was like, holy crap, guys! Like you're paying her to be your bodyguards. Well done. Hope she sees it, bro. But you're right. It's an emotional attachment. I don't know if I could link it to like a fear of rejection. I don't know if we could link it to just ego investment. Like there's clearly some mechanism there that makes them this attached. And I know there's got to be a psychological disorder or at least some level of psychological disorder in there. I just wish there was some shrinks that didn't hate the red pill so much they could talk about this stuff and enlighten us, you know?
Well, I think it's dependent personality. But I kind of wanted to switch gears here because kind of something I was kind of rewatching some of the old VH1 Mystery the Pickup Artist, which is one of my more frequent references. Because one of the funnier things in there, you can see the guys in there, they come in two categories. Only two. You have the guys who are like 90% there. They just have like one big fault you have to fix. And then you have the guys who are like 10% there because they've admitted this is a problem for them, but they still have a fuck ton of work to do.
Huh.
And for the guys who are like 90% there, and I'd estimate that most guys who come to the Manosphere aren't that bottom 10% there guys. They're not the 90% either. Most come somewhere in between. But like if you look at I think it's the first season, You see, like, you have a big fat guy there who obviously needs to lose like 120 pounds. You have the guy with crippling social anxiety who immediately clamps up with a checkered family history who probably needs at least 5 years of therapy.
Right.
And then you have the good-looking photographer who does like model photography, but he has a fucked up afro and granny glasses. So get rid of the glasses, get him a decent haircut, and get him in something other than, Walmart t-shirts, and he's good to go.
Yeah. Which I guess is the easy type of client. That's what everybody expects. The guy it's literally can just say, hey, change this. What's that stupid thing? Hey, just click this link for the one thing you need to change to be perfect. Everybody wants that guy, but I don't know. I don't think those guys are the ones that are floating around the manosphere like, I don't get it. I dress like an idiot, but I want the girls like me. Oh, fix your dress.
I think the key with the like 80-90% guys is that they usually want consistency as the main thing they need to work on. Like, they can get laid now. Mm-hmm. It's more of like pussy accidentally falls onto their dicks on occasion.
Yeah.
You go to a you go to a wedding and, one of the bridesmaids is feeling depressed because she's like 32 and not married and put on 5 pounds, so her dress is extra tight, so she needs the validation, so they get to throw her one, or, the kind of homely chick from the accounting department at a Christmas party, that type of deal. They can still get that done, but the problem is they end up dating these hosts and marrying them. Mm-hmm. And then you have the longer dry spells in between. And then you have the guys who are, let's say they're 10% there because they've kind of admitted that this is a problem area in their life. But the last time they saw a vagina was right before the doctor slapped them on the ass.
Those guys are, they're fun to deal with, but they're difficult too because I have to remember the mistakes. Like, we have a couple guys like that. They're like, I've been out of the game for so long, and they make the weirdest mistakes, and you can always see those underlying issues. Like the one guy in my Patreon, I won't go to details, but he was basically putting up with bad behavior, like checking her phone while they should be on the date. And it was just a simple fact of boundary enforcement. She clearly either doesn't want to be there or doesn't know how to act right. So like, hey, get off your phone. And if she doesn't get off your phone, just get somewhere else. But that's the problem, is that it's been such a dry spell. A lot of guys would put up with that, and they're like, what tricks and tips can I use to get her off her phone? Do I make it a game? Do I shit test her? And you're like, no, dude. It's like, remember when you said dinner dates are for chumps? I don't know if you worded it that way, but essentially, why are you wasting an hour of your day and a $70 dinner on a girl who you don't even know if she's worth your time? So that's the point. You take the girls on these little simple dates, because if they start pulling this shit, you can just get up and say, thank you for your time. I'll catch you later. Enjoy the Miller Lite on me.
Yeah, I kind of like those as the early dates too, because if you're having a beer or a cup of coffee, mm-hmm. you have that natural ending point when you've had your coffee or you've had your beer.
Yeah.
And those are going to be like, if push comes to shove, you can get a beer down in like 2 minutes if you really want to. It'll be obvious, but you can drink a beer in like half an hour and still seem pretty fucking casual. Or, drink a coffee in 15 minutes, unless it's like McDonald's scalding hot. So you have those natural, if you're like, okay, this isn't clicking, this is a waste of my fucking time. You have that, oh yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to go back to work now. Or, sorry, I have other plans. I think the importance in doing that is just, if you're doing like the dinner and a movie date, I don't get how that became like the standard date in our popular culture. Because first off, if you're having dinner, that's at least an hour you're going to be spending sitting across from each other with your mouths full of food. And you have nothing to talk about there except, the food itself. But then if you go to the movies, you're going to be sitting there for 2.5 fucking hours by yourselves and not saying a word.
Yeah.
So you're essentially using, let's say, 3 to 5 hours of your time, potentially with a girl who you can't stand. It's the same thing like people like, okay, I want to take her to the ballet for the first date. Did you realize that Swan Lake is fucking 3 hours, right?
I didn't know that. I was thinking you were going to go with the Nutcracker Suite. That's the ballet for people who don't like the ballet. Oh, I watched the Nutcracker Suite Christmas. I'm sure you did. I got a joke, but I think we got to go back there to see Nutcracker Suite this year when they open it up. But you know what I mean? The worst part about that, too, is you're setting yourself up for failure. Like, let's say the girl would be interested in you, but these things are so boring. And you know, girls are already kind of crappy at carrying a conversation. And you've basically set it up so you have no chance to carry a conversation or to escalate. I mean, I could reach across the table. Excuse me, can you move the Parmesan aside? I want a Kino Escalade on your forearm. But it's almost like it's destined to make guys fail, but a girl will get a free meal for the attempt. That's probably why it works out.
That might be it. It might also be like a hangover from like earlier versions of courting, where that type of long date was more acceptable than, you know, like Victorians weren't going out for just a coffee.
Yes, I don't even think they had. Oh, I guess they might have had coffee around that time. I think it just started coming to Europe back then, didn't it?
Coffee's been in Europe for hundreds of years, man.
Well, I was thinking, like, because the Victorian time was around the Enlightenment, wasn't it? And wasn't that when coffee replaced beer as, like, the standard British drink?
It still hasn't done that, man. Since when has coffee been like a standard British drink? Like,
wasn't that the whole point of the Enlightenment? That's the way I understood it. Everybody was drunk all the time, and then all they did was, like, do stupid farming shit. And then all of a sudden they started drinking coffee. They made the coffee houses. Some Scottish people got together and was like, hey, you know what's great? Science. Let's go. Let's fucking go. And then Hume was like, I got this. Ben Franklin was like, all right, I'll put away my French whores and we'll free America. I could be missing some details, but I think the broad strokes of the Scottish Enlightenment is there.
Yeah, you're accurate, Lynn, like the broad strokes of it. But the point was that even like 10 years ago, getting good coffee in England was fucking hellish, man.
Which is weird, because it's like Europe is right across the way. I guess it's because they hated the French, and the French hated the Brits, so they never gave them the coffee.
I have no idea, but I think tea is just like always been like the commonplace drink. It's similar to like I saw some dude who did like a review of how come beer became the predominant drink in the U.S. instead of wine.
Is this a anti-Catholic thing, or?
No, the anti-Catholic thing is later. But the point here is the people who emigrated to the United States were hardworking, working-class people who historically always drank beer in Europe, beer and coffee. Whereas the upper class would drink wine and tea. Like the British even like tried to make wine from grains because so they wouldn't have to import wine from the French at one point.
Really?
Yeah, they started making barley wine.
I was going to say wine from wheat. Isn't that just what beer is? I guess there's got to be a difference.
Yeah, there's a slight difference, but barley wine is basically just a huge-ass beer.
I've discovered wheat wine. Wow. What do you call it? I call it a lager. Wait a minute. You fucking guys. I don't know why. That makes me laugh more than it should. It really does.
Fun fact about lagers, though. You know why they couldn't have been made before 1492?
I am curious.
Because the specific yeast strain used to ferment lager beers has a mutation that's only found in South America.
Oh. Well, that's right up there with what did Italians eat before they went to the New World, because tomatoes were from North America. Always wondered that one.
One of the more impressive things, though, is like how quickly Asia embraced the chili pepper.
Really?
Because you can kind of understand why the South Americans like the chili, because it's originally from there. Mm-hmm. But like, can you imagine like Thai cuisine before they had chili?
That's something I never thought about either. Dude, how the hell did Europe and Asia work before discovering the New World? Like, I can't even fathom it. How does Ireland work without a potato? How does Italy work without tomatoes? China without peppers? What did these people do? Were they just clacking rocks together, hunting deer all day?
Well, I do think it's interesting because, like, the potato was one of the things that surprised me the most, how recent of a thing that was in Europe. Mm-hmm. Because it turns out, like, before that, all they'd eat instead was bread.
Ugh. I don't know how they did that. All right, whatever. I guess we should get back on topic here. I start getting to, like, the drunken history, but without the drunken. What I have next to mine one. Oh, Faux Rewards. Here's a good one. So you're talking about logistics? it's kind of tangential to it, but I think you'll like it. If you don't know what I'm talking about with Faux Rewards, it's essentially being purple pill. Guys who, okay, so be attractive, don't be unattractive, be naturally flirtatious, always flirt with your girl, always flirt with everybody. She gets first round of your libido, she doesn't get sole custody, all that stuff. And then guys do that, and girls are generally receptive for their sexuality. And then she receives it well and becomes more sexual, and they tend to have a happier marriage. And then a guy thinks back to our old adage of reward good behavior, don't reward bad behavior. So he acts a certain way. She gets good behavior, and she gives good behavior in return because she responds to it. And then he thinks, well, now that she's good, I can reward her. And then they go back to the same bullshit they did that got him in the mess the first place, thinking that they're rewarding her by being like overly doting or simping for her. And that's single guys as well as married guys. Thoughts? I gotta get better segues. Fuck. Like, I don't know if you see that, because when you were in the single, I guess you wouldn't have done it yourself, but I see it so many times from like guys who are divorced just getting into the game, and guys who are in dead and dying bedrooms that recover while they're still in the anger phase.
Well, I think a lot of the time it's just a symptom of dynamics. Like, guys will start to do the right stuff because it's the same thing. Rolo has this great post. I think it's called Flashes of Anger or something.
Ooh, I actually don't know this one.
And it's about the guy who's been categorized as beta, who then becomes alpha. And well, he doesn't become alpha, but his girl pushes him to the point where he just snaps at her, like not in a gay hissy fit type, but more in like a type of sit your ass down and shut the fuck up now.
Oh,
and just
dude,
walk away.
I've seen this. Okay, I know the article now.
And suddenly the girl just jumps his bones. And it's kind of the same thing. So I think you get the reward for that little bit of progress, but then you slink her right back again because you solved your problem. That's why a lot of the guys who come here, like, I just want to get this one girl I've been fawning over for years. And if they actually manage to do it through hard work, they then immediately go back to like their old beta simping tactics, and the girl starts to hate them and it dumps them.
Yeah, good old, what do they call them? Red pill aware, the purple pill guys, the ones who just, they think it's like a parlor trick, like magic tricks. It's like, it's not really how it works. It's kind of about fundamentally changing yourself to be a better version of you from a sexual standpoint. And I don't know. And the marketing types aren't really helping that either, because they always sell it as like the tips and tricks you need to be a top tier man. But you're perfect the way you are. The problem is everybody else. So at the same time, you're useless and you need me, or you'll die alone and lonely. But you're also perfect the way you are, and you shouldn't change. It's like, I gotta give credit to those guys. They can word that shit without like an ounce of irony to it.
Well, it's also, I think, part of their gamut. Like, if you look at payment models, the coaches that are trying to make as much money as possible are going for the software as a service model. They want to be paid by you every month on a fixed schedule, so they have predictable incomes.
Right.
And that kind of requires them to never give you exactly what you need. It's better to give you a treatment for the rest of your life than to give you the cure. It's the same as pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you really think they would have produced a COVID vaccine if they could get away with like a COVID pill that you had to take every fucking day that cost you like 10 grand a year?
Well, don't you require like 5 booster shots within a year? They kind of did that already.
Well, 2.
Yeah.
But one of them, it just comes down to the payment model isn't conducive to fixing people who have a need to fix a lot of things. That's why, like, the last chapter in book 2 is just consists of me trashing a guy named Dave's life and just making him the saddest, fucking, most pathetic excuse for a man you can possibly find. Just to kind of exemplify how you have to go about digging yourself out of a hole that deep.
I'm going to throw a link to that one, by the way, in the chat in case you guys are curious. Ever since the guy was like, hey, this John Fitch guy should write a book, and he's like, actually, I have 2. And I'm always worried that guys have been listening to this for like 2 years, and they're like, wait, Carl writes? I'm like, yes, Carl writes. He writes well. So I'm going to put that in there for these guys. But no, that was what I liked about it. I think it was when you were first putting it out, you showed it to me before you even sent it out. But it was literally you built, I don't know, what's a beneficial version? Not a straw man, because I don't mean it as a pejorative, but like, this is the worst guy ever. This is the archetype of all the failures that anybody has ever had, and here's how he gets out of it, so you have no excuse. Just take the parts that you need, right? There she is. There, guys, click this. It's actually a really good book. You would do yourselves well to read it. Gendernomics Building Value.
Yeah, thank you for the plug. Anyway, the point was just if you have a lot of things you have to fix, you have to kind of sit down and you have to write yourself a list. And you have to try and figure out, okay, how do I attack this list? Because if everything in your life is kind of fucked up, some of those things are going to be easier to fix. Some of them are going to be able to do in parallel. Like you can start losing weight and start running game at the same time. You don't have to wait until you're in perfect shape.
Mm-hmm. And the beauty is those help you learn to accept rejection because you're already out of shape and practicing games. You'll get all three out of the park.
Plus, you'll also notice how the women's reactions change to you as you improve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good kind of booster to your confidence as you go along. And the same thing with the Mark Beauvoir. When he got divorced, he was like a lot of money in debt. And he had like a very good plan on like, how do I get my ass out of debt? Because let's say if you're living with your folks right now and you want to get your own place,
mm-hmm.
you're going to have to do something to earn enough money to pay for that place, plus all the other stuff that goes with living by yourself. And that might take 3, 6, 12 months to do, depending on how fucked you are. Same thing with running game. I think Krauser is talking about, like, was it 6 months he practiced day game before he finally got laid off day game?
That sounds about right. Dude, I love guys who do that. They do day game and they come back and they're like, I had a client back when I was still doing consults and he was talking about, he's like, dude, I'm out there all the time and it's failure after failure. It's like he's talking about, he goes, I think I have maybe like a 5% success rate. And I'm like, dude, did you realize that like every day gamer at his best is like 5%? So you essentially got to the pros and now you're like, geez, this is fucking ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, how successful do you think guys are? Like nobody's batting 100. Nobody. Brad Pitt's not batting 100.
No, but even at James Franco, who had that when he got outed as like a sexual predator or whatever for hitting on like a 16-year-old Scottish student or something.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Like the practical female psychology Franco?
No, like the actor James Franco.
Oh, that James Franco. I don't know why I was thinking Franco. That's because I got the PFP on the brain. Jesus.
And so that was kind of like, you can start working on it, but you can't do everything at once. So I've always been a fan of like just like put down one main theme. Like if you want to get in shape, make that your number one focus, and then you can have 2, 3 other things on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have learn how to make chicken and broccoli with actual spices.
Oh dear God! How many calories are in cilantro? None. Go.
Well, that's actually been one of my on a completely tangential thing. That's always been one of the more annoying things I have with people who cut, and they're like, well, the food tastes like shit. Well, A, because you can't cook, and B, because you're used to eating processed stuff that's engineered to hit every single reward center in your brain. Which kind of makes you sad, though, to think that McDonald's have food scientists that formulate everything and the food is still that bad.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the point. Like, I think there's a certain measure of, like, suffering. Because have you ever drank a White Claw?
Nope, never.
Oh my God. My girl brought one home. She's like, I want to see what all the hullabaloo's about. It tastes fucking horrible. It's basically like club soda and flavored vodka. But like all the parts of it, I don't know how you can make like a cheap, shitty tasting club soda. It's just carbon and water, but they figured it out. But I think girls drink that because they think like, oh, I'm losing weight because it's just club soda and vodka. So that's like the lowest calorie things ever. Or your example with the chicken breasts and that, it's not even that they don't know how to make good food, which they don't, a lot of guys. I think it's like I must suffer and pay penance for being a fat fuck, and so I need to eat the blandest food ever. It's almost like a way of like self-flagellating yourself, or self-flagellating. Who else would you self-flagellate?
Well, I do think that's an interesting point, though, that a lot of the guys need that have an innate need, in my opinion, to make it as hard as possible on themselves to punish themselves for their past failures.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely nothing productive in that.
No. Faux punishments. I was gonna say, faux punishments. That's actually a common thing I've seen for guys that are taking the red pill too. I call it like the Catholic confession syndrome. They will literally come in, hey, I'm taking the red pill. I suck at this. 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 Call me a pile of sticks. Call me an asshole. And they basically just ask to be berated as like some weird kind of absolution after confession. And then the guys will treat that as their success metric. And that's my concern with it. Like, whatever, if pretending you had to eat bland steamed chicken all day and that punishment allowed you to succeed, that'd be great. But I think a lot of guys assume that the punishment is the solution. So once they get that, I don't know what hormone it's going to be. Let's just say it's a dopamine hit from punishing yourself. Then you feel good. And now, well, that's the feeling of people. Then they're improving. So now I'm improved. Meanwhile, they didn't have to do any of that. It's like you said, spice the shit out of your chicken. Make it taste delicious. You'll still lose the weight. Yeah, you won't have that. You won't be able to remove the guilt by punishing yourself, but you still succeed. And what's the point?
Yeah,
It's like you said.
best...
Yeah, your goal is to lose weight. Your goal is not to punish yourself for being a fat fuck, right? So why even concern yourself with that?
Yeah, like one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when it came to cutting was just that take your emotions completely out of it. Okay, so you didn't lose any weight this week. Okay, fuck it. You just keep going. Oh, you gained a little bit. Okay, who cares? Just do better next week. Because you expend energy and you don't gain anything from badgering yourself.
Yeah, but it feels something. Lots
So
of
I
strong
will say
feelings.
that. Though I will say that, occasionally referring to yourself as a fat cunt will help. Because a certain degree of hatred towards yourself does help in that regard.
Hate her just a little bit. Her is you, though.
No,
I like it. I like
it's
it.
like if you're going to put yourself through something that's going to be tough, it kind of helps to prepare yourself by getting your motivation up into like the conscious part of your brain. So you know that, okay, you know what? I'm going to go on a 2-mile run. I'm going to be completely fucking crushed tomorrow, but I'm putting myself through this pain because I want to get something, because my current situation is so painful that dwarfs whatever progress I make.
Yeah, but not
Like,
going
I
so
know-
far to the point where you're actually like, I'm going to go out there and hurt the shit out of myself because that's what I need to do.
No,
Like,
that's
if you
the
can do it without
difference.
hurting yourself, still do it.
Like, I'm going to go into the gym when they open again and I can go back to them. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do one strong lifts 5x5 workout with low weights. And I'm just going to keep doing that and work my way up according to the normal progression, just on the basis that, okay, it's been 12, 13, 14 months now since I could lift regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some body weight stuff. I've done some dumbbell stuff, but it's nothing near the load of a normal gym session. So I know I'm going to be DOMS fucked the day after. Like, I know I'm going to have to lower myself onto the toilet using a fucking rope.
Oh, I know. I'm expecting it too. That first week is going to suck so bad. And I'm with you. I'll lift the bar the first day. I'm coming at it with like no pride whatsoever. I need to be able to sit on the toilet without screaming,
Yeah, it's like hate yourself a little bit, but you don't want to hate yourself completely. And I think that's one of the negative sides to like the drill sergeant and Full Metal Jacket approach to coaching too in this sphere, is that it relies on breaking guys down to the point where even the small things they actually do have that they like about themselves are kind of destroyed in that process. And I don't really think you need to break people down Navy SEAL style to get them laid.
Yeah. Well, they aren't even doing
Occasional-
it right. None of those drill sergeant coaches have ever had military time, so they don't even know the purpose of it either. I cut you off, though. I want to hear where you're going with this.
No, I actually wanted to hear where you were going with your take on it.
Well, like, I've been in that situation. Like, I've been through basic training myself. I've been an instructor for sailor after, like, the trades training and stuff. But the whole point of that is just people love making excuses. They love like thinking their way through it. They know they're smarter than this. And the idea is just like to remove everything else from the equation other than the task at hand. That's why you get yelled at. You get yelled at because the bed wasn't made properly. This is how it gets made properly. Guys will always, and it's always the first guy who gets yelled at. It's like, well, I tried, but I had to. It's like, I don't want to fucking hear it. This is the plan. This is how you do it. And you never shit on the guy. It's not that you're a piece of shit. It's that the work you've done is a piece of shit. So you've already helped. And so it kind of has this weird effect that it takes a guy's ego out of the equation and it makes him task focused by very short, simple commands, bypasses his frontal lobe and all of its excuses and goes straight to the limbic brain. Must succeed on this, make pain go away. And then, because everybody sees that, that's how the drill sergeant shit works. You get yelled at your first day, and then as you get better, whether you get better quickly or not, the yelling gets tapered off. Like, nobody gets yelled at in week 10. On week 10, it's like, good job. But week 1, it's like, you piece of shit. Or not you piece of shit. This is a piece of shit. But it's theater. And I think the guys that are doing the drill sergeant thing here, all they see is a guy yelling, and they're like, oh, so if I yell, I can be just as good as Full Metal Jacket. And I hate it. Drives me fucking nuts.
And then you have also like the drill sergeant, and then you have the hype man thing. And I think the hype man thing is more productive in a sense, but it depends on how it's done, because I kind of view the RSD guys as more the hype men type coaches.
That's fair. All I could picture is was it Owen or Tyler doing the thing with that weird like homoerotic lisp he's got. I think you've got this, man. You can totally do it. And then like an hour of blab in his mouth about nothing. I'm laughing too much. I can't have this dead air laughing at my own damn jokes. How unprofessional.
Yeah, anyway, kind of the point is, though, that hate yourself just a little bit, too. Like, take Ryan's advice about how to make your relationship work, and you apply that to your relationship with yourself.
Well, makes sense. I mean, you've been fucking yourself over for a while. Stop fucking you, start fucking her, right?
Yeah, and kind of like one of those maths I did in the book was just, if you've spent X amount of time getting yourself into a certain situation, let's say you've been overspending for 5 years, you're not going to be able to fix that debt in 4.5 weeks.
Oh, guaranteed no.
Same thing, if you put on like 5 pounds a year for 10 years, you're not going to lose 50 pounds in 10 days. It's going to take a year maybe, but in the end you'll get there.
Yeah.
But the best way is just focus on getting there. And just the simple things that, you know, some guy put out, like, think about how people feed their dogs. They eat the same shit every day in a measured amount. And that's basically all dieting is. Eating like a dog.
Mm-hmm. And they're happy every day. Every day. My dogs punch me every morning to wake up. Hey, it's time for that half-thawed-out puck of meat. Get in there. They do the thing where they like hop up and down on their feet every time, then they eat, and then they go have a nap. I'm like, God damn, I wish I had that kind of discipline. I can't even get me and my girl to eat oatmeal 2 days in a row, for fuck's sakes.
No, and in this case, like the faux reward for the whole coaching thing just becomes the fact that he's not yelling at you as much.
Mm-hmm.
In
Which
reality,
is weird.
The reward should be progress on the task at hand, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think that's that parasocial relationship that's kind of endemic of online social personalities. Like, there's a lot of people, I don't know, I can't say specifically who, because I don't know who, but everybody knows that one guy who treats the online personality as if they're like real life best friends. Oh, he talks to me in chat all the time. I talk to him in chat. He's like a father to me. You know, like actually Jordan Peterson, great example of that. So many guys were like loving it. And I don't want to shit on like Rolo for this one, but those guys are like, you saved my life. Like, those types are the exact ones I'm talking about. It's like Rolo and I, when like none of us did shit. You fixed it. We gave some books, we gave some talks, maybe something resonated, maybe it kickstarted your progress, but like they offload their success onto the other person's bigger than life personality. And they're essentially turning into like a sycophant looking for a demagogue. And it's definitely not healthy. But it's lucrative because they'll sign up every weekend for your, you know, weekend pickup seminar, right?
Yeah, but I think that's why it kind of takes that cult vibe for me. Because kind of the way a cult leader does it, they embrace you with love at first, and then they trash you, Then they say you're such a trash human being that we're the only ones who could ever love you, and we love you unconditionally. But here are all the conditions that we need in
To be
order to keep
unconditional.
loving you. And then as long as you transfer all your money and all your property over to us, we will be the surrogate family you need. If it's the right type of cult, they'll even hook you up with a chick that'll fuck you. And then they have the guys hooked, so they're essentially doing what the state does, just to, it's kind of let's call it, they have a side hustle of creating mini states.
I like that. I just wish there was more of a market for the cast iron pan model. Build it once, build it for life. And I could get it, like for pharmaceuticals, I get that. There's only so much Xanax to go around. They've basically reached market saturation, but for like this, I guess self-help space, is that the fair way to refer to the manosphere? The self-help space?
Yeah, fair enough.
There's like, nobody has more than like 1% of the total audience as clients. Even the best guy. Jordan Peterson doesn't even have close to like a market saturation. So there's really no need to hoard clients and maximize, what's that metric they use? The dollar cost per customer or something. You know what I'm talking about? That metric?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Like there's no reason to go for that. It's like, why wouldn't you want to just churn through the 350 million American men, or however many million American men there are?
Well,
Like,
that's
even
also
if
why I
you-
kind of...
Yeah, of course, that's worth $1. You run through 300 million people, like you're fine. Why do you need to have this weird parasocial thing set up,
Well, that's what I liked before the massive spergening in the manosphere a few years ago, because then you had that kind of community where people were doing self-improvement as an overall theme, but they had different takes and specialist areas, so it was actually complementary and useful.
Yeah.
Because let's say you start following some fucking diet guru and you drop 50 pounds and suddenly you're in shape. You're going to need new clothes that show off your physique well. So it helps having a dude that can tell you, okay, wear these colors, get these sizes, this is how shit should fit. And once you've gotten that done, it kind of helps having that guy who can help you, get out there, be more social, be more extroverted, that type of thing. And all that's complementary. But once you start to see that as adversarial in that everyone is selling their own brand of be me, then it ceases to be complementary and instead becomes adversarial. Because at that point, if you take something Ryan says, then you're not going to take that from me, which means if Ryan produces more value for you, then you might go and become a client of his, which means I lose all your money.
Yeah. And you've turned like a blue ocean into a red ocean, essentially. And it's not even a red ocean. You just pretend it is one and you act as if it's one.
Because I would think that, and I think the dumbest thing ever is when you force your audience to pick between content creators, because then you reduce the market size for both people. Mm-hmm. Just from a business standpoint, that doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it ties in. What's that game theory? Is it the prisoner dilemma? Yeah, the prisoner dilemma, where if two people act a certain way, they can maximize like gains for everybody, but left to their own devices, they always act in like the worst interests of everybody. Like you can rat out your guy, and he could rat you out, or you could both be honest, or you could both keep quiet. And if you both keep quiet, you both do fine. If one of you rats the other one out, he does fine, you suck. But if you both rat each other out, you both get fucked. And then just by the way the game plays, the optimal way to play is for you to rat the guy out all the time. And so everybody gets fucked all the time, constantly. And it just seems like it has that same vibe.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I liked with the way it used to be, that it wasn't wrapped up in personality. It was more like, okay, does this dude post useful shit or not?
Yeah.
If I take his field report and try it on my own, does it work or doesn't it work? And I think that's a good kind of way of viewing advice, that you should never take 100% of one person's advice. You should take what actually works for you out of that. It's the same thing with workout programs is a good analogy.
Right.
Like some people respond better to volume, some people respond better to intensity, some people respond better to a mixed program, etc. So you just have to figure out which kind of program works for you. Like I've gotten injured every time I've moved into like bodybuilder rep ranges, so I've just stopped doing it.
The 8x8 is dead to you.
Well, I still 6x6 is the only one I'll still do.
Okay.
Like 3 times 12 is out. 3 times 10 is out. And then, the 8 by 8s and 10 by 10s, fuck that shit. I don't want to kill myself.
Well, yeah, I had to drop so much weight to when I like weight on the bar to get an 8x8. At that point, I'm like almost doing bicep curls with pink weights. I'm going, I don't think I'm there. Maybe I just don't have the right amount of ATP in my muscles to handle 8x8 with a decent amount of weight, but whatever.
Not enough vitamin S. Your TRT program isn't optimized.
Oh, dear God. I better talk to the TRT guru. Oh, that's the other thing that got me, too. So you're talking about the switch to brand of me versus what it was before, where like everybody has their specialization. And I think there's an amplification of the problem because the treating the sphere like a buffet, I think, is a problem, too. Like everybody always says the red pill used to be better in 2014, or it was better when it was Royce and Rolo and that. Because I noticed it goes from a switch from tinkerers to help forums. Because like, what did Royce do? Royce was just talking about his experience. This works for me. This works for me. This works for me. Roosh did the same thing. This works for me. This makes you gay. Rolo was like, hey, we had this great talk. And they were all like tinkerers. Well, I'm building this thing and this is what I came up with. And somebody else would have, I built this thing and this is what I came up with. And more often than not, the good stuff would run in parallel and somebody would notice, hey, 5 different people using 5 different methods came up with the exact same strategy. They wrap some kind of theory around it that makes it make sense, whether it's true or not, who cares? And that's kind of how it all worked out. But then it got to the point where enough people joined and the regression of the mean applied enough that it turned into, hey, I read your stuff. How do I fix this? And then they all of a sudden became the authority just because they were willing to put in a little bit of work to understand the dynamics. And I think it's not even that gurus tried to be marketing gurus. I think the audience slowly became less and less interested in trying things out for themselves and seeing what worked, that it kind of elevated the tinkerer to the guru. Does that make sense at all, the way I'm saying it?
Oh, yeah, because, like, in the beginning, even when I started running my stuff in, like, 2016-ish, that was kind of fumbling about trying to come up with theories based on observations and kind of seeing, okay, if we take people's observations and we try to put them in an economic perspective, doesn't make sense because I'm kind of have that perspective that everything in the universe is shaped by evolution, and evolution loves efficiency. So whatever evolution develops will tend to be efficient, but not necessarily intuitive.
Makes sense.
For instance, like, fake social signals versus real social signals. Women have developed a great antenna for fake social signals because guys have been using fake social signals for hundreds of thousands of years in order to get laid. That's why congruency becomes important, because women aren't looking for the signal, they're looking for the context of the signal.
The subtext. My God, it's almost like they deal in subtext all the time. What is this magic you speak of? They don't think like men?
I don't know. I tend to think it would be interesting to have one of those Freaky Friday type moments where you got to be like, have your brain as it is, and then you just became female for like a day. Because it would be very interesting to see kind of what's the gap, because none of us can ever experience the other person's experience. And it would be interesting just from a data perspective.
It'd be good. You'll never get it though, not from any like credible source. Ethics.
No, yeah.
Ethics boards, like thanks to the Austrian painters, we can't do these kind of human experiments anymore. Thanks a lot, Adolf.
Well, I'm just saying it would be interesting. You're never going to get that data though, because no one's ever going to do that data and do that research. But like the move from tinker, just from people trying to work things out from themselves, you get a certain degree of humility from it. So you're just like, okay, I tried this. Here's how it worked for me, but it may not apply in your context. Like, again, the mystery thing on VH1 is a great example because he was talking in their ear and telling them what to say.
Right.
And what lines to use. So the only difference is how they looked and behaved. And you see it working for some of the guys and not for the others. That's a clear indication that the guys who are having success with it are doing something or are something that the other ones are not doing. So at that point, you can start kind of locking down what's the difference. Like, and one of the big guy in season 1 was fairly open about, yeah, because he did really well with all the game. He was socially, was extroverted. He was really good at getting himself into sets. But because he was a huge fat dude, he had a really hard time building sexual tension and building attraction.
Right.
And he was fairly open at the end, like, I'm going to have to start going to the gym and start losing some weight in order to be able to build attraction.
But he had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah, but that's what you get from tinkering. When you get people who, let's say you find someone is really, really lucky. Like, one of my mentors told me once when I blew a lot of his money on a kind of stupid trade back during the financial crisis.
Right.
He told me, like, I'm really glad you fucked this up on your first try, because if you'd done really fucking well, you might have thought you knew something. And it's kind of the same thing with game, that if you kind of, let's say you find Rolo stuff early on, you find Royce when you're like 16, and you're the only guy at your high school reading Royce. Can you imagine that kind of head start?
Oh, dude, it would... I think there's not even very many field reports of it, but I could see it. Even if you don't just take it wholesale and you understand the stuff and you get done, at least knowing when you run through that awkward phase that every teenager goes through where they screw things up, but then understanding it, like they've already gotten half of their tinkering phase out of the way because, all right, so this doesn't work, all that Royce shit's bullshit. Then it happens, okay, it works. As opposed to the normal guys, which will run through that same bullshit, and then they have no idea how it works, and then they have to start tinkering. Like you said, I don't know how much faster it is to do it versus like reading Royce and not, but it's definitely a noticeable difference in time to market, God, I'm stuttering today.
No, but the way it makes sense is if you were one of those guys who lucked out, so you found the manosphere early,
right?
Maybe you got into side hustles early, so you've actually had some success because you were one of the early guys in that market. Mm-hmm. So you've had success after success because of a mixture of luck and timing. Why would you think that? Well, what reason do you have to think that you haven't figured everything out? Because everything has worked for you so far.
Oh yeah, the signals are all...
So it makes perfect sense for you to try and be a guru. But the problem becomes that you haven't really learned anything yourself. You haven't discovered any new knowledge. You've just been applying what other people told you to apply. So what is your unique selling point towards your clients? Has to be something. And if you don't have any original knowledge, it has to be personality.
Yeah. Oh, and that's where we're at right now. I still laugh. I don't want to say who, but there's somebody that we talked to kind of, tangentially, whatever, and they were saying, oh my God, guys, did you see this guy? And they're bringing up this, new guy in the space talking about all this great shit. And you're like, this stuff is amazing. And then Rolo looks like, that sounds real familiar. It sounds like he's reading my goddamn book. And we realize there's this guy that's been like red pilled for 8 years or whatever, hasn't read Rational Mail, been talking trash the whole time. It just made me laugh. I don't know why.
Well,
how many red pill guys
though?
Don't even know the other people in the space that have done anything?
Well, I can kind of see that happening because, like, the only reason I found, like, what's his name? Mode 1. Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Curry. Alan Curry.
Yeah, Curry. Like, the only reason I found him was because I accidentally tripped across Donovan's show when he had Eliminable Man on one time. So I thought, okay, this was kind of cool to listen to. So I used to catch Donovan's show whenever I did cardio. And that's how I kind of figured out about Curry and a lot of the guys in the Black Manosphere.
Oh, yeah. See, that's funny. I found it through Tony Sotomayor. I don't know how he ended up there, but it was from him because he was talking about moving to Arizona and then lived around white people. And he's like, hey, white people actually aren't bad. And then from there, I ended up finding the Donovan and all them. And then Alan Curry was eventually at the tail end of it. I liked him because he sounded like my grandfather when he was giving sermons.
Fair enough. But anyway, so when you start to kind of get that, you kind of arrive at your own conclusions separately. So I can see that happening. Some dude who was, let's say there was some dude who was a natural, never saw a reason to contact the manosphere,
Right.
who's kind of been through this for, let's say, 30 years, and now he's divorced and he finds the manosphere because he let himself go and he still doesn't understand how that's happened. And he finds the manosphere and he probably knows a lot of the shit intuitively because he's learned it. At the same time, he's not going to have that at the forefront of his mind because the blue pill naturals are the worst ones to deal with.
Well, yeah, it's like asking a fish, tell them about water. They don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
So I just find it interesting to see all the different branches off. I just think it's important to kind of look for the congruence in the coach. And you have to kind of get to a point where you're like, I know enough of what this guy knows that I can put my own spin on it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I've
honestly,
joked around that, like, I can imitate just about every major manosphere writer if I want to.
I've seen
just
a
from
couple of
having
those
read
test
them.
ones. He's fully right, guys. He did one, like a little bot, and he was testing it out for a week there. It sounded just like the guy. It made me laugh. Terrifies me, by the way, if you ever start doing that with me and it works. I'm like, fuck. Now I got to go back to the drawing board and rethink my life.
And the point of it is just that once you get there where you have someone who's a hero and you just take everything they're saying as 100% truth without taking into account what's the context of where they learned game, what's their context growing up. There are a lot of these factors that play into things. Let's say you have some kind of anxiety problem. The whole fake it until you make it might be exceptionally difficult for you. The same thing with guys who have like social anxiety or are scared to talk to people. Going out and doing those 50 approaches is going to be a lot more terrifying for a massive introvert as opposed to someone who does sales as his day job.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
And a lot of the guys who are kind of pushing this are natural salespeople. They have that innate sales gift.
But that's the problem. The guys that have the natural sales gift tend not to have the natural curiosity towards learning things. They're just good at they're good at polishing things. They're not good at building things. I find in general. I think Rolo says that too, where there's the idea guy, the marketing guy, and the money guy. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. A lot of the time it does. And it's kind of what you're seeing here because you're seeing essentially the sales guys.
Which is annoying. I mean, well, it's not. Well, I mean, I could see Rolo being annoyed with it because essentially the sales guys pick up rational mail and like they're looking at it through like where are some banger tweets in this 500-page screed? Where can I post some shit out of my car in the garage? So it's got to annoy him because so much of his shit's taken out of context. Like, she's not yours, it's just your turn. Everybody builds marketing around that, and it's like, this is too nihilistic is the one side of things, and the other guys say it is like, bitches ain't shit. And both sides completely miss the point of the thing because they've been so busy on the catchphrases and the marketing pitches that they're really good at it, that the entire meaning of that statement gets just muddled underneath all of it. And then you have a bunch of guys throwing money at the problem. It doesn't solve their problems, builds up a cycle of either ego investment or resentment. And then what do you end up with? Look at these guys, the fucking pickup artists. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
You know, it's kind of similar to... Okay, where the hell was I going with this point? Kind of dropped out of my head. Well, the thing with Rolo stuff is you kind of want to read that in context. Mm-hmm. Because you have to understand the origin of she's not yours, it's just your turn. And it's the same thing with just about anything that you're trying to learn. Not just in game, but in everything.
Yeah.
You have to understand the context of what it was written. Like, it's the same reason why people who read Nietzsche as their first philosopher annoy the fucking crap out of me, because everyone loves to, like, the God is dead quotes and shit. But they don't understand, like, the work Nietzsche had done before that, the work he had read, and what he actually meant by the statement. Because being able to read something, being able to quote something, and understanding it are three very different things.
Oh, 100%. Come on in, little buddy. Dog's coming to say hello. Yeah, it's... Sorry, I know I'm ear raping you guys here with the coughing, but...
Yeah, you've got COVID.
Oh, that would be awesome. Then I don't have to worry about any vaccines. I've already got the vaccine the natural way. But you see it because a lot of guys, and I noticed this. There's a certain large YouTube channel right now full of guys. I don't want to say who or what, but some of them will find their way to like my private community and they'll talk about this and they're like, and they'll throw the terms together as like a string of marketing terms. I can't wait to be the oak and AWOLT this shit to the, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sakes. And then you realize like the problem isn't that this guy doesn't know anything. The problem is he thinks he knows everything, and you have to spend so much time just correcting the misinformation that you can't even work on his actual problems yet. And that's the part that makes me think like, you can't tell me they're making things worse and building awareness is a good thing. You're basically screwing people up so bad. And then you run into the problem that there's no authority, right? So who are you to tell me what AWOLT is? When I watched, who's somebody I don't mind shitting on publicly? Anthony Johnson talk about AWOLT. He said it was this. Who the fuck are you? He has a studio. 21 of them, in fact. What do you got? And then you're just like, now you got to play on who's the authority. And you're just like, you know what? Go do it. You got it, man. I'll see you after she divorces you and takes the kids. But yeah, later, babe. And that's the frustrating part. And I think that's why you and Rob and them are great in the whole like, and Chesty, fuck them. Just fuck them. If you want to be an idiot, go be an idiot. I'm here for people who want to learn. I'm here to practice my own stuff, shed the notes. I guess this got a little bit complainy. Never mind.
No, but it's, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, right?
Especially when he argues you with whoever water is. That's not water. Water looks like sand. Trust me, my guru said it. Fuck
And
you,
a
horse.
big part of this, like, you can't oversell how important experience and testing is in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be willing. There's no point in being like the guy who can quote and say exactly what Rollo said in paragraph 3 on page 87 of the Rational Mail. That doesn't help you.
Nope.
Reading the Rational Mail, then going to do 100 approaches helps you.
Well, yeah, just the screwing up I find is the better teaching than it. Another example, use some guys that we were talking with, and he hadn't approached ever. He had no game, and he's practicing game. And he sends field reports every now and again. And I have to correct myself because, like, the first couple field reports he was sending were fucking dismally bad. Like, the escalation was ham-fisted. He didn't... Like, the whole point of escalation is to see if she's out of comfort zone yet for that. And if she's not, then back off. You didn't build up enough attraction, or it's just not there. But he does all of this stuff, and he screws it up. And then I'm like, okay, this is wrong, 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 this is horrible. And I realize I'm basically just taking a shit on a guy who's literally doing what we just said is a great thing to do. Tinker, fail, learn from the mistakes. So I'm like, I kind of had to take a step back. And that's a failure on my side where it's like, all right, you know what? You started at 0, and you got all the steps right, and you screwed up a bunch of little details in there. But like as a broad stroke, it was good. You started somewhere cheap, walk in the park. You did a transition to a coffee house, to a restaurant there. You understand that Kino is needed, but you didn't do it properly and you weren't paying attention. But you know what I mean? And I hate when you were talking before about guys that are just, being the drill sergeant or the hyper motivational guy. I think they both fuck that guy over too, because the drill sergeant type would just be like, you did 50 things out of 60 wrong. Fuck you. And then the hype guy would be like, hey, there was these 10 things here that you did that were great. You're awesome, man. I love you. And then that guy's fucked because now he thinks those 50 things were probably good too because he never heard any bad feedback. As opposed to the guy who's like, looks at this objectively. Okay, this went right. This went wrong. This was wrong for this reason. Better yet, if the guy comes to that conclusion on his own, he goes, okay, I know this was wrong, but I can't quite figure out why. I think those are the best because those are guys who understand, like you said, in the VH1 thing. They know this is their problem, but they can't quite pinpoint where. And I think that's where the men swapping notes, red-pilled model of things really shine. It's where they just need that little bit, that little connective tissue where somebody's like, oh, yeah, I've been there. It's just this. But he already knows all the context of why it's important, that he probably screwed it up because he didn't see telltale signs, but he just doesn't know why. And I love that shit. And personal note, I'm working my best to get us to that point. That's why these fucking assholes in the chat keep calling me coach because they know it pisses me off.
Well, it's kind of like the the way I kind of developed with it was I can't do traditional night game
Oh.
because I hate clubs. I hate loud bars. I think 80% of human beings are dirty, obnoxious, undereducated, irritating mouth breathers.
Yeah, isn't that great?
So, being in a club surrounded by those cocksuckers for 4.5 hours where I hear the latest no talent pop star belch her fucking song throughout auto tune out over the speakers, raping my ears by the minute,
Drives you nuts.
just doesn't have an appeal to me. So I like day game. I like being able to get into smaller settings. I like coffee shops, that type of thing. And I do like online game quite a lot, just on the basis that it means you don't have to grab the girl at a club. They'll come to you and I can swipe while I'm having a shit. Plus, I have a good text game.
See, and that's funny. I'm the opposite. I am not day game adequate at all. Like, I've never done a Yad stop. I don't even know what a Yad stop is. Like, I kind of know it has to do with the way you approach somebody on the street, but I've never done one, and I couldn't describe it to you right now. I'd have to go look it up. But for
Well,
me, it's
like,
the same thing. It's because when people are acting like retarded, and like you said, the swine, and they smell like shit, it's like, for me, there's like failure doesn't matter. It's like, oh, wrestling in the mud with pigs. Did I lose? Did I win? Well, I'm still covered in mud. Who gives a shit? As long as I'm having fun riding the pig, right?
Yeah, but I like my favorite type of social event for running pickup house parties.
Oh, okay, fair enough. House parties are the best.
Because the reason being that if you have a house party, you usually have a different mood in every room. So you usually have like the big living room where there's loud music and there's dancing. Then you have some people hanging out in the kitchen just drinking and talking. You usually have one room that's full of stoners just getting high or something.
Yeah, people smoking out in the patio.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of different zones you can move between. So if you get a little bit tired of the loud music and everything there, you can move into the kitchen and just chill and have a drink, whatever. So those kind of offer you a broader area of work. Yeah, there's coat room too. Yeah, fair enough.
I've been blown in the coat room at a wedding. It's a
And I
wonderful
think
time.
just being able to figure out like what kind of game works best with my personality and my skills. Like I'm a horrible fucking dancer. So dance clubs, not my scene at all. But
It's high energy.
I would say I'm a fairly decent conversationalist, and I'm a good storyteller, and I'm always good with jokes. So that kind of caters very well to good one-on-one or small group game.
I'm trying to think. How would I describe mine? Definitely clownish. Like, I can sit in a crowd and just, like, sit there fearless telling stories and that kind of stuff. Very animated, lots of teasing. But I think that's just like OCD game or ADD game. I'm very bored, and so I need to stave off boredom at everybody else's expense, but make it playful enough that they stick around for it. Maybe that's a failure. I'm not sure. That might be something to work on. I'm gonna have to tell the girl that we got to separate for a bit. I got to practice this stuff. Put out some field reports.
I was like, Ryan, why did it end between you and the girl? No, I just needed to do some day game.
Yeah, I needed to practice some day game, and I didn't want to do that to her. She's too great. Dude, she does... Off topic, but it's funny what she does now. So she's on TikTok because she's a chick, and of course she is. But she literally scrolls till she sees like girls from 25 to 35 and their stupidity on TikTok, and she looks. And she's like, "Hey, this is what's out there for you. You can't ever leave me." And I'm like, "Fuck, she's got a point." Oh my god, like all of it, like mid-size. That's the newest thing. Basically, fat chicks they can't get away with calling themselves curvy anymore, so they call themselves mid-size. Apparently, size
like
15 is mid. Yeah, exactly. Oh. Yeah, I'm a mid-size. This used to be a size 15, but now it doesn't fit, so I think it shrunk. And you're just like, oh, for fuck's sakes. There's nothing mid about that, but whatever. And then there's the occasional girl who actually is mid-size, and you're like, all right, fair enough. At least some girls are normal.
Yeah, but I think that's just one of those. I've had my rants about the co-option of the term curvy because that used to be like Sophia Loren.
Yeah.
I'd say I did slightly better than Moody Millennial since I dropped the mid-sized the sedan comment first.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why he's laughing. It was really good.
Yeah, though it kind of does make me want to start to run game again. Just so a girl can be like, well, I'm mid-sized. I can be like, yeah, you kind of look more like a Volkswagen Beetle.
Mid-size, mid what? Mid diabetes? I
Yeah,
gotta have to wordsmith some stuff.
No, I'm just waiting until I see some screenshot on my Twitter from some dude on Tinder with a girl who's like, "Yeah, I'm an SUV, a fucking Range Rover up in this bitch."
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I can't. It's got to be America. Like, there's fat Canadians, but Americans do it on a whole other level. I still remember going to Orlando and seeing the girls out there with like the thoughtiest thought dresses out there, and I'm like, there's way too many roles for me to wear in that shit. It's basically like making beef Wellington. You know that little web pattern they do on the beef? Yeah, it was like that. Except for each little piece, each hole inside was like, how do you have 15 muffin tops? That's all I'm asking. So but I should stop at 2 like a normal fatty.
Yeah, I get annoyed with other things though with girls. Like, I can live with I just kind of ignore that stuff. But what kind of gets to me is like the same thing to some extent that gets me with male coworkers. Like, you're showing up here in a nice suit. You're wearing tennis socks and fucking sneakers. What the fuck's wrong with you? Like, you're wearing a $2,000 suit with $40 Vans. What the fuck? And same thing with girls. Like, girls have on a nice dress and they're wearing fucking Converse.
Oh, that stuff. All right, I could feel you. See, I thought you were going to go after yoga pants right now, which are my pet peeve. When I see girls with yoga pants, it's like guys wearing jogging pants outside. I'm like, you idiot.
Well, I do like yoga pants, but they are for a certain body type. It's the same as, halter tops. Like, I remember at one party, we ran a betting pool because, like, me and a couple of friends found, like, a table at the party and we started playing cards.
Right.
That says something about the state of the party. But then this one chick walked in. I'm pretty sure she was easily 2 bills, but she had huge fucking tits, right?
Jesus.
And she had on a halter top.
Oh.
And she was bouncing around. So we were sitting there having a betting pool. Like, how long is that fucking halter top going to constrain those bad boys?
I don't want to know who won because everybody would lose.
It looked like she was smuggling fucking pumpkins into the party.
Dude, I don't know, man. It's like too many people say that she's got a really nice rack on her because they wanted a slump buster, and then she actually took all the advice to heart. It's like, oh, I guess they are nice. Let's just emphasize them. And you're like, no, dude, you can't look like the woman of Willendorf and expect to get a man in 2020. Ugh.
Yeah, and like Dante was saying, like, it's about the whole outfit. Like, same thing if you have a guy who's wearing like a polo shirt with khakis and then wearing some, let's say, Chelsea boots with that outfit. It just doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I was like, I wonder where he's going with this. Like, that's so versatile, but like Chelsea's is like fair.
Well, Chelsea's are probably some of the most versatile, good-looking footwear I know because you can wear it with almost anything. But the Chelsea's with a combo of khakis and a polo shirt just doesn't work.
No,
in my opinion,
I know
anyway.
it's like 2 different flavors of casual, if that makes sense. That's why I can't see it working very well.
Yeah, because like Chelsea's with jeans, or I've even worn Chelsea's with a suit when it was kind of like suit type environment, but it was more casual suit type environment.
That's my favorite time to wear them.
So then they're perfect, but if you're going to wear like khakis and a polo shirt, you want to go with in my opinion, with some form of white sneaker, not go full Jeezy or something, but going with the Stan Smiths are good. You have some Onitsuka that are good for that. Any white sneaker more or less, or you can use brown regular style dress shoes. But I wouldn't go with like the double monks. I would go with single monks, I think, ideally, because the double monks is maybe a tad step too high for that.
It's too leprechaun-y.
Yeah, like the Anyway, the point here is that it depends on the entirety of the outfit, the context, and the person. Like, the Fonz wearing the leather jacket with shorts at the beach is the prime example.
I can't tell if you mean that as a good example of a guy who knows his style or a bad example of a guy who doesn't know his style.
Well,
Because honestly, I
can't
can picture
remember.
that, and it actually kind of makes sense to me with the Fonz.
Yeah, with his character, it makes sense, but with anyone else, it just looks retarded. Same thing if someone invites you to a beach party and showing up in a suit.
Ah, yeah, fair enough. Well, I think
It's
that's
that
like a social awareness.
Yeah, it's the awareness of it. Same thing with girls, it's kind of annoying me, like how low rent they are trying to get. Like when the girl is wearing yoga pants and a baggy sweater, she didn't comb her fucking hair. She didn't bother putting makeup on.
Maybe even get a top bun.
Yeah,
The standard, I didn't feel like combing my hair this morning look.
like how low are you willing to drop that standard? And I would say if you had to pick between like two girls, you can pick between a girl who's better looking but puts in less effort versus a girl who's not as good looking but puts in the effort every day. I would go with the girl who puts in the effort.
Well, yeah, because that's telling you what's going to happen in 5 years. Like, as much as everybody says, I only fuck nines and tens. Nines and tens get older, and they become sevens and eights, and sixes and fives, and heaven forbid if they get a lot of plastic surgery, fours. But all these little things, like effort, you can't age out of effort. You can age out of looks. You can't age out of effort. And you're right. If you're looking at it from a long-term perspective, of course effort's going to trump it up. Fat girl can lose weight if she's a fat girl that puts in effort. A thin girl that doesn't put in effort, she can have one of those like thin girl gunts. But you can't do it on a one-off either. Because I was remembering, who was it you said did that? Where I was sick as shit, went to go get cold medicine, and like I had to hit on you. I'm not prepared. I'm not even close to looking like it, but I'd kill myself if I didn't. What's your number? And it worked. Who the fuck was that? You said it was, or was that you?
No, that was I read some guy who told that story. It's from one of the old pickup forums.
Yeah, that one there. So I could give a benefit of the doubt for a girl doing that, but you're right. I'd say by 3 visits, if you haven't seen, like if you've seen consistent lack of effort, then it's pretty safe assumption.
Because like it's kind of like the same thing with the work ethic. Like you want to get a girl who has a good work ethic. It's not like top of any vetting list, but it's an important thing because if they don't put it, if they're not willing to put in work and put in, where are they going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when my girl asks why do I love her, I tell her it's because she can drywall. So, like, I'm not arguing with you. I think I put it
Yeah,
on my
but
Instagram
Ryan-
when she was running the jackhammer and retiling the floors while I'm sitting here on a podcast talking about what it takes to be a man.
Yeah, but to be fair, Ryan, I expect any girl that's been with you for a while to be very familiar with drywalls.
I know that's a slam against me, but I don't get it.
I know.
I'll just laugh anyway. Damn you, man! That's not true. I'm
Yeah,
strong, man.
Worst part, it's a really fucking good slam too in that in this context.
Oh yeah, it
Kinda
was
annoys
awesome.
me.
You did great. Probably something to do with like getting a girl wet. I'm assuming. Either way, you
Yeah,
got me.
exactly.
Eh?
Exactly.
You've evolved past making fun of my shirts, and even though I actually specifically bought this shirt thinking this would be the one that kind of annoys you, I don't even know what the pattern is. It's like the BC lumber yards or something like that. I don't even know.
You know, it's kind of like the one of the best kind of slam lines I've ever heard was in a battle rap, where the guy did like half a verse with a Marvel theme to it, and had this startup where he's slamming, some guy's girl, and he's like, "You should call me Alex Summers for all the havoc that I've caused her, but I've been through the bitch's walls so many times that I'm actually Nightcrawler." And that had like the perfect level of slam, insult, and nerdiness to it.
Fair enough. I was kind of thinking of that one you did, the "How's It Going, Carl," where you started
Yeah,
making
that
Mortal
one.
Kombat references. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, every like 6 months or so, it'll get like a mini blow up, and like 8 people will start like, "Oh my god, why haven't you done these in like 8 months?" It's like start laughing. Like, hey, they take time to write, and plus it gets demonetized like fuck. You start the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
thing off with 15 F-bombs.
Yeah, it's like it's asking to be demonetized. Usually I like ending rants instead, but then I have to write them on the fly so I can reference the show.
Yeah. Too much effort, guys. We like you. We really do. But you're not worth that much effort.
Yeah, and
So
I
you
think
get the coffee date.
I think Moody Millennial kind of has the best inspirational take on your shirt today. It's the new Air Force uniform. It's sky camouflage.
Dude, Canada's military can't even joke around right now. I found out, so I don't know if you know this, but like our top brass has been all been Me Too'd. Like a half a dozen 30-year generals and admirals, right? And then I'm finding out some of the details. So one guy, objectively bad. Most of the guys, though, like one guy, he mooned somebody when he was at military college in 1996. Wasn't on the internet, wasn't a brag, but all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that 30 years of service for your country, well, you mooned somebody who was uncomfortable in 96. So he totally got Kavanaghed. And I'm like, what in the hell? And then some of the girls now that are getting into the positions of like commanding officers for certain units, they're actually starting to have that. I'm pretty sure the only reason I'm here is because I'm a chick, which is kind of annoying. But then they threw out the new Canadian Forces ad. Everybody was making fun of it on Twitter. You probably missed it, where it was something like, what happens when Canadians stop saying sorry and start kicking ass? And it was a reservist with like a soul patch, a legal beard, and a bandolier, big belt of blanks around his neck. And I'm just like, fuck you guys. I gave 12 years of service to this. You should have let the commies win. Fuck me. I don't know why. You just made me laughably. Like I'm laughing, but on the inside, I'm really crying.
I have to say though, like, what's the deal with like every ex-military dude having to grow like a soul patch his first like month out?
Dude, I couldn't figure it out. It's always the same look. I think it's because it's like the most illegal thing you can do with your hair. They grow the soul patch, and they do that like the Rock circa 2007 sideburns. That's like dissect down there. And then they always end up getting like a piercing somewhere. I think it's because most of the guys that were getting out were kind of like teenagers in the 80s, and they want to go back to that. But the mullet is too hard when you're balding.
Yeah, I just remember I talked to a couple of ex-military guys about that, and like both of them had like the exact same look. It was the soul patch, the kind of like mid-90s Backstreet Boys hairdo.
Yeah, them's the ones.
And sideburns.
You know, it reminds me of like goths. Remember how goths were like, I don't want to dress like the normies, and so they all dress like everybody else who's a goth?
Yeah.
I think it's like the equivalent thing, like the veteran look for Canada. At least the American veterans, they decide, I'm going to dress like I just came out of a swamp now. Fuck it.
Because I can kind of get that. Like, let's say you're a 20-year veteran, you haven't been allowed to grow a beard in 20 years, and you've had to have more or less a form of a buzz cut. I can kind of get wanting to be like, you know what, fuck this shit. Like, I would understand someone who's a 20-year military vet never ironing a fucking shirt ever again.
Yeah. But it's funny, they still do end up ironing, but then they go the other route, they start ironing jeans and shit like that just to feel some normalcy. Although I guess it used to be worse. They used to drop dead as they left the gate because they don't have any life's purpose outside of the military. I don't know, it's just a weird bunch of fellows. I think it's best if you leave, you have to leave on bad terms. That way you don't attach yourself to that life at all once you're out. Luckily enough, they're making sure it happens with the new forces.
Well, it's kind of like, it reminds me of like this guy who, what's his name? He was like an ex-DEA anti-drug cop in the States or something, and he retired from the drug cops, became a huge stoner, and put out like a video series on how to fuck with police who are trying to search you for drugs. I think it's about 10 years ago. He put out Never Get Busted Again was the name of the video. And he's just going through like, okay, when I was a drug officer, this is how I'd search a car. This is how you want to conceal your shit. This is when you want to haul something. And it makes sense.
Awesome.
And to be honest, like it was kind of like, I got a similar to game feel. Because it's like, with day game, you always want nice weather. Mm-hmm. Because no one wants to stand in the street when it's cold or when it's raining. Same thing, apparently, if you're smuggling drugs. You want to drive in an inconspicuous car when it's raining. Because no cops want to be doing traffic stops when it's raining and cold.
Yeah. Don't do it. Always find somebody. That was my dad's advice to me. If you're going to speed, find somebody who's speeding and go 5K slower than him on the road. So they pull him over and you can just drive by.
Yeah, same thing with like my suit traveling thing. If you always wear a suit when you're going to travel, you'll get through any security checkpoint so much faster. You never get hassled by security. Never. And the same thing, like most of the time, if you dress like, go on Deloitte's website and look at how their consultants dress in different contexts. If you dress like that, you'll never get stopped by a cop ever.
I'm picturing right now a charcoal gray suit, a gingham cotton plaid shirt, like that standard look, and that tie that always gets. They don't untie it; they just loosen it to put it on the rack every time because they don't know how to tie a Windsor. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing. And Dante's absolutely right, guys. Hit the like button. Thank you very much. It helps the algorithm. Thank you for the 50.
Well, it's like I've joked around
Ps.
sometimes. Like I can actually tell. Like Price Waterhouse, for instance, you can always tell which consultants are working for them because they're only allowed to wear like 4 colors:
Oh.
olive green, light blue, gray, and black. Those are like the 4 colors all their consultants wear.
God, all I could picture is somebody dressed like a 1970s fridge. With
Yeah, I'm
fucking
not
green
sure
color.
where the fucking green comes from. Like blue, white, khaki are kind of the go-to colors for any guy who's working corporate.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that. I mean, good for them. I guess if it works, whatever.
Like
I mean, is there even
legit,
dress codes anymore?
yeah, but I've legit came into the office and there's been like 7 guys here and we're like, okay, we look like we're wearing a fucking uniform.
And they are, because people like to look similar. That way you know you haven't. That's way you know you're doing something right because the herd approved it. That's why every guy wears a tuxedo.
Yeah, and
Well,
to
at least
kind
I
of
know I'll
bridge that
dress
in-
right.
And to bridge that into the topic for like our top for the top of the show here, knowing the groups you're moving in. Like take Rob from Rob Says, for instance. He has that typical rocker dive bar look.
I'd say so. Yeah, the do-rag bandana, the t-shirt with Slayer on it. Yeah, the whole works.
And so that works in that context, and that works with the type of girls he's chasing after. But you're not going to get rocker chicks if you're dressed like you just came out of a Brooks Brothers commercial. You have to look like you kind of fit into the tribe, but you can be somewhat at the side of the tribe, but you have to look like you fit into that context. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot more scrutiny than anyone else.
Yeah, and it's just for the simple reason. It's just the same reason that if a guy acts creepy, a girl doesn't tend to like him. Like you have to signal that you're sociable, that you have that. What do the chicks call it? They call it social intelligence, which really doesn't mean anything, but you know what it's getting at. Is he able to communicate and handle communication with all of us? What do we call them? Monkeys in suits. Can you handle that? And that's all that. And you're right. It's social signaling. The entire thing. Everybody thinks it's about you dress nice, and then nice equals good. It's not that. It's dress appropriate. It's like you said with the ex-military guys. A lot of girls love going for ex-military guys. They're retired and have a pension, and usually a side hustle is doing well. So if you dress like that, you're going to attract a certain type of girl, even though by any dress standard of any fucking guru on the internet, they're like, don't do this. If nothing else in your life, do not do this. But it still works for some of them.
Yeah, and like I always had that social intelligence test in mind when I see guys in the manosphere too. Is like, is this a guy I could bring to like a corporate event and not having him climb onto the table with a wine bottle in his hand to sing?
Dance around in front of your former alcoholic friends. Yeah, I don't know. Hypothetically speaking, of course. And definitely not a specific example that I know you're talking about.
Like, could I bring him to a family function without him calling my mom a fucking liberal whore?
Yeah. Calling her guilty. Could I worry about inviting him over to my mom's place for dinner and him not trying to take her to a dance? You know, basic
that type of thing.
decorum. Oh, fuck all those guys. Whatever. I guess I gotta. Do we have to do that thing if we get big enough? Like, we have to stop like just dunking on people, or are you allowed to dunk on people now, and still maintain some measure of Z-list e-celebrity?
I don't know. I don't really care.
Fair
It's
enough.
your channel, so if you're like we're gonna have to stop dunking on people, we'll try to do that for like half a show, and then we'll fail when we get halfway into it. Someone will
Yeah,
mention a shed or something, and just everything goes to shit.
I don't know, man. It's yeah, like I said, it's probably like Ed. Remember when Ed stopped dropping n bombs in his chat because he's like, I'm big enough
Yeah,
now. I shouldn't be throwing them around. If I ever get that big, maybe, but I think I'd rather just like not get that big. I think it would be much happier.
and it depends on your brand too, man. I think size has its benefits in that you have a large audience, you can probably sell better, but
Hmm.
ideally for you, if your life goal is a certain amount of money from this shit, just figure out how the smallest audience you can have and still get it.
So I've already done that. We're already there. That's the beauty of it at this point. I've earned just enough that I can completely live the lifestyle the way I want to live. And so really it's about, and I know it sounds fucking cheesy and everybody says this, but it's really about the work at this point for me. Like you said, Red Morning, you're not making money off of this. I am, but whatever. I actually have more fun just having an excuse to make sure I can talk with Carl like an hour or two a week about shit that I find interesting and shit that you find interesting. To me, that's much more value than. And I don't want to discourage you guys from super chats, but I'm just saying I like Carl, right?
Well, all I'm saying here is like I'm in Europe, so I'm obviously a dirty socialist. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
like doing the show because I'm helping the less fortunate make some money.
Ba-dum-bum. Well, we're turning into Zimbabwe, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm actually interested to see, like, on a completely non-game related, to see how the world is going to be after COVID, because I think the socially uncomfortable guys might be able to clean up because after like a year and a half of lockdowns, everyone else is totally socially miscalibrated too.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. 15 months of the
Everyone,
gym being closed, everybody's gonna be sitting there lifting with like 25 pounds. It's gonna be awesome.
yeah, everyone has gotten a little bit extra fat on them.
Yeah. Level playing field. Wasn't it that joke that Rich used to say that if you took all the money in the world and split it equally amongst everybody in 5 years, it would be back to where it started? I think we're literally going to have a worldwide experiment of that, but for everything. For like who sleeps with who, for game, for income, fitness. Is merit really mattering, or is it just that the rich people get richer and the poor people get poorer? I think that's
Well,
going
I
to be
think
fascinating.
the whole aspect that I think Rich is right on the money thing, just on the basis that you either know how to manage money or you don't.
Hmm.
And the people who, let's say you split all the money and you gave it, like most of the population would spend that on dumb shit. The smart people would invest it in this the stuff that dumb people are buying.
Hmm. Which makes sense. So, in other words, invest in vaccines. Oh, full
But
conspiracy.
but one of the funnier things with like the Great Reset bullshit though, why are the guys worried about like the Great Reset broke? Like if I was Jeff Bezos, I'd worry about a Great Reset where suddenly I lose all my money. Like if I'm living with my mom and recording videos for TikTok in a Jetta out on the parking lot outside of Walmart so my wife doesn't hear me, what the hell do you have to lose from a reset, man?
I think it's the same thing as guys who haven't, like, whose wives are in a dead bedroom they haven't fucked in like a year, but they're still worried about pissing her off because she might leave them. I'm like, you're already ex-husband and wife. The only difference is now you have this weird moral code that says you can't try and find sex somewhere else. So really the only difference is, do you want to pay for two condos, put her in one and put a new girl in yours, or what? People hate change.
Yeah, and it's kind of like funny though because like a lot of guys are trying to never provoke their partner or significant other. Like I go out of my way to try and provoke people.
Damn straight. Lets you know what they're made of. How
Like
somebody
I was
responds to a
talking
provocation.
like I was talking to my girl the other day. I was like, I should sign up. I want to sign up for this dating show just to go on there and fuck with people.
All right. I guess quick thing. I'll do this one here. He was asking about the thoughts of the Australian Navy. We had them on board once. They drank with the Canadians. They lasted 20 minutes and they had to be dragged off the ship afterwards. So, nice bunch of guys. You say cunt a lot. Really can't hold your liquor, but, nice group. I'll take you over the Brits in that when you get drunk, at least you don't start cross-dressing. And thank you too, Bull Rush. Your superior petrodollar. Hey, looks like somebody he was putting gas in plastic bags, selling them on the black market, making a sweet profit off it. Good for you, Bull Rush.
Well, the funny thing is, I think you could actually do that with the development in gas prices.
Except for that, it would eat through the bag in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, but you can get like oil drums or something just to keep it in.
So, like, yeah, literally doing speculative trading, but holding the physical product. I could see that.
Yeah, but like, I just don't see a point in doing it if you could buy oil futures.
Well, isn't that the whole reason oil futures existed? Is so people don't have to sit there with an oil tanker in their backyard waiting for the prices to change?
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, what was the story? Wasn't people doing that back when oil went from like $100 a barrel down to 30? They bought a bunch of oil futures, but they couldn't offload it, and so they eventually got stuck with the product at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's a classical problem with that type of investment.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm never going to go there.
Well, it's kind of the same thing you had with the housing market, where a lot of people bought houses at the peak, and then the money dropped. And then once the house prices dropped, a lot of people were stuck with underwater mortgages.
Speaking of when you were saying before about why are the guys worried about the Great Reset when they don't have any money, that was a perfect example of that. People were like trying to be the noble things, like, no, I can't just walk away from my house. I gave my word. And they got fucked. They eventually, after like 7 years, finally, like 8 years, managed to pay half of what their mortgage was worth. But the rest of the guys that just walked away from, like, fuck it, bankruptcy is 5 years, I'll be fine. They actually came across better by being like a grifty shitbag than the guys who tried to hold to their word and be noble and do all that great beta male stuff. But it's like you said, the poorest people were the ones that were willing to fuck themselves over the most. And they didn't even get the benefit of like the expensive social signal. That's the worst part. Holding on to an underwater mortgage never got anybody laid. So like, why would you do it?
Well, most of the people I know who are doing well have an attitude where, okay, you'll never put morality or feeling good over pragmatic concerns. Mm-hmm. So you'll never keep doing something that doesn't work unless it's simply because it doesn't work. It doesn't matter the morality, it doesn't matter the ethics, it's just about what costs you the most money. And the same thing, like I have all of my retirement stuff in stock funds just on the basis that it's going to be at least 30 years until I retire. Mm-hmm. In 30 years, we'll probably have 10 dips and 10 peaks.
Makes sense.
So my thinking is just take down the risk in the retirement the closer you get to retirement.
I think that's standard advice, is it not? Like switch from your high risk to low risk. That's why people are kind of pissed off right now, is because they're ending off with negative interest bonds, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I actually have a lot of people going on about that, like where we want to get out of stocks because the market is starting to get overvalued and risky. Where the fuck do we go? And there's no fucking place to go that has to, because
I guess not even Bitcoin.
Well, you have crypto, but crypto is still quite risky and volatile. So that's going to be a problem, because if you want a safe haven for assets, you don't want something that's volatile and fuck with high risk. Mm-hmm. So you want bonds, you might go for gold, you might go for property, but bonds are doing shit. Property is suffering from a certain risk of over investment already, because property is a go-to investment for most quote-unquote normal people. So there's really nowhere to go.
I guess mattress underneath the mattress, the new investment strategy.
Yeah, if you think the Great Reset is coming, 7.62 caliber bullets.
Actually, that's a good question. Where would I put it other than this? I don't even know, other than just sit it into a high interest rate bank account and let it sit there. But then again, you're just playing against inflation.
Even those are below 2% interest now.
Oh yeah, and Canada's interest just doubled to like 4%. So I guess that's the issue now. People want to lose, like, it's not even about where are the best returns, just where do I lose the least amount of money.
Yeah, and you
What
have
a
to keep in
horrible
mind
place.
that. Yeah, and you have to keep in mind with it, you can't raise interest rates anymore either from a national level because if you do, then half the states in the modern world will go tits up from insolvency.
Yep. And you can't lower them because they're already at zero. Like, you can't go below that. They're literally just
Uh,
stuck. You have to just ride this thing out and see what happens.
Well, there are a couple of countries that are doing negative interest rates now.
Really?
Yeah.
What effect does that
So
have? Because I've never even heard of that. That's like a divide by zero error. And I guess we should end it on this. Let's end with your thoughts
Yeah.
on what a negative interest rate means.
Well, you still get positive interest rates when you borrow money, but it's something that happens when you get interest for borrowing money. So
Yeah,
it's
but
just
over.
essentially you're just increasing the money supply. That's basically it.
Oh, well, fair enough. Well, thank God, because we didn't have enough money supply to go around as it is. Oh, well, fuck it. I guess that's the show. Gendernomics 1 and 2. I'm putting it in the description as well, guys. If you haven't read it, read it. I'm telling you. I'm not saying this because I like Carl. I'm not saying because I did the cover and it's great. They actually are good books. And yes, I have read them. I'm not just pretending to. I like his economic angle on it. For a lot of guys, they tend to navel gaze a lot and overthink things. And I think it's the perfect way to... It appeals to the language you're used to, with at the same time not allowing you to navel gaze your way to failure. Brass and lead. Fucking ex-military Americans. As long as I can stab them with a bayonet, all's good. I got nothing. You got closing thoughts? Oh, it's
No.
Troy for Rule Zero, by the way. And we're talking about being your best self versus just being yourself.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
All right.